This week's Race Mate is Just a Hero. Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
Done.
And scene.
And scene.
Fuck me.
Oh, I love this. This is going to be great. Ahoy hoy and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk. I'm Shaun, Effie Trinket, and joining me as always is the punchy, alcohol-loving, middle-aged man, Aaron Haymitch Abernathy.
I do like you made me the grumpy alcoholic, though I do take umbrage with middle-aged.
Where's the lie, Aaron? Where's the lie? How are you today?
I'm good, slowly making it through a cold Melbourne winter. I do like that you chose the theme of the episode to be the Hunger Games, not only for Hungary, but also one of the races with some of the most fighting between the drivers.
Right. There was so much chaos and so much fighting. But you know what? We could be Capital TV's newest, gayest, and most fabulous F1 review show. And by golly gosh, do we have a dramatic F1 race weekend to get through today?
Dramatic is calling it lightly, I would say.
Aaron, guess what?
What?
I'm hungry. Hungry for more F1 Hunger Games! Alrighty.
I'm really impressed you got that through in the one go. That was very impressive.
There is context, but there was an SNL skit where it had Sofia Vergara basically being a reporter in the Hunger Games, and she is just losing her mind.
Her shit.
and eventually, like Katniss, the person that's playing Katniss, is like, eat these berries. And she's basically trying to shut her up before she gets shot, right? And she's like, oh, I ate the berries. Oh, the berries are great. I think I'm dying now. Boom! Hunger Games! And just tits and hair. And it's just gorgeous. So I'm just trying to emulate that today.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I feel it now.
Anywho, shall we introduce our newest race mate to the pod?
Sure.
This week's race mate isn't just a hero in the chiropractic arena. He's a well-travelled adventurer who navigates the world's roads and cultures with the same finesse he brings to Align Chiropractic in South Melbourne. He likes to run long distances, albeit very slowly, has a strong passion for cars, and would be my first pick in an F1 trivia team due to his vast insider knowledge of what goes on within the paddock. Shout out to his wife Meg and his adorable four-legged children Hank and Milo. It's now time to rev up our engines and brace ourselves for a cracking good time. See what I did there?
Solid.
Yeah. Please welcome to the Let's Talk Garage, Kieran.
Hey, thank you.
Hey.
Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to have you here on the show. You've been a big supporter since I mentioned it on the table. How do you think we're going?
Yeah. Well, next question. No. No, it's been really, really good. My wife Meg and I have been listening to it a bit in the car, and I listen to it myself as well. I think it's really great. It's a cool take, and it's been really fun.
You listen to quite a fair few like podcasts, news, and everything there too, don't you?
Only F1 related stuff, essentially.
Yeah,
yes.
So you're basically just a vessel of F1 knowledge.
Well, I listen to a lot of it. Hopefully I retain some. It'd be handy in this instance especially. But yes, F1 podcast is nearly everything that I listen to.
Well, good thing you're not going to be quizzed about stuff today. You just have to make sure that you remember what went on with this weekend, which I think you're going to be well versed in that. Thank you for the love there. I appreciate that. Now, how did you get into F1?
I've been thinking about this actually the last few days, and I know that there were members of my family that were interested kind of tangentially. We would talk about it occasionally, my older brother and I. And then I remember distinctly sitting and watching Mark Webber's first race with Minardi and him getting the points in Australia. Was that 2002, I think it was?
This is trivia mode now.
Yeah, well, let's say it was 2002.
Sounds right.
And don't come at me if I'm wrong. But I remember watching that and then just being a Webber fan from that point onwards. And obviously it wasn't that easy to watch back then because you'd only get a few free-to-air races a year. And, you know, I didn't have a TV in my room and you didn't watch things on iPads because I'm older than that. And then I was always just interested over the years, and then it's really kicked into gear when I was able to watch it much more easily and legally. and not have to stream it and things like that. And so it's been a pretty solid kind of 7 or 8 years now where it's consumed most of my thought.
I have totally forgot the fact that, KO didn't exist.
Yep.
I didn't have access to Foxtel growing up. How did I even watch it?
This is exactly my point. I know I watched the Australian one every year, but
Some of it was broadcast on Channel 10, I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah. And then I would watch, I know they'd always do Monaco as well. They'd have like 2 or 3 a year that they would have access to. And there'd be the Australian one and Monaco, and I know I watched those. Again, I remember distinctly watching Webber getting his first podium and then getting his first win and things like that. But yeah, I didn't intend to be a Webber fan specifically, but it's just when they would show it, I suppose, in Australia.
But a good fan, like a good person to rile up. Like Mark Webber's amazing.
Yeah. And like a really interesting cat too, so it's cool.
Yeah. And has that opened up to more motorsport, or is it just particularly F1?
It's just particularly F1, really. So my older brother is really into MotoGP, and so we'll do a bit of chat about that, and I'll occasionally watch a MotoGP race. And I've been trying to keep up with F1 Academy for this year, but I haven't been as religious on it. I do find it takes up a lot of my bandwidth if you've been into F1. So, yeah, I'm amazed. I have friends who also are into Indy and everything else as well, and I just cannot get over where they find the time. But just mainly F1 for me, with a bit of MotoGP and F1 Academy as well.
Yeah, nice. And do you have like a favourite Formula One track, or have you been to a couple of F1 races recently?
Unlike some of us on the pod, I have. I've only ever been able to attend the Australian one. I actually, I don't know. Everybody seemed to be down on Hungary, but I actually really like the Hungary track. I'm also. And I know unpopular opinion, but I actually enjoy watching Monaco weekend. I know the race is never that exciting, but I think, I love the way that it's different to everything else and presents a different challenge, and how big qualifying is. And, all the faff that goes with it. I love all of that. I think the spectacle's pretty cool. Yeah, unfortunately, it's only been Australia that I've made it to so far. I intend to change that as soon as possible.
Do you have one that you'll kind of like choose to go to? If you had to think of a track tomorrow and go there, what would it be? Would it be Monaco, or do you reckon it'll be something?
No, I think if I was going to, it'd either be Azerbaijan or, I know this is boring, but Silverstone. I know boring in the sense that, like, obviously it's amazing and everyone's probably going to give that answer, but it's just such a cool track.
Except Jody, who then had to get do an apology in last week's episode. Yeah. And then how long have you been a chiropractor for?
As it turns out, a long time. I graduated in 2010, so this is 14 years in now.
And have you just always been loving human body and trying to fix things? Or that's the nicest way to kind of put it.
Yeah, good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes. So since I decided it's what I wanted to do, which I kind of really made the decision in Year 12, it's been kind of all I've wanted to do, and I really love it. I'm a massive nerd for it, to be honest. I'm that guy that really loves their job and gets to go and do what they really enjoy. So yeah, I'm very fortunate.
Well, I'm very thankful for the fact you've been able to put me back into shape a couple of times. There have been a couple of moments I've rocked up to the table and I've gone, I can't move.
It's our pleasure. It's what we do. It's what we're there for, in a literal sense. So I'm very happy to take part.
Yeah, Evan, what's been your thoughts so far on the 2024 season?
I'd have to say, what a surprise. I was one of the people at the beginning of the year that was like, there's a chance Max is going to win every single race this year, and I'm just going to have to try and muster enthusiasm to see how well people can go coming second. And I thought that's what was going to happen. And then I know you were also at the Australian GP, weren't you, this year? Yeah. And like that moment that the smoke started to come out of Max and everybody held each other, like as in, do we dare to dream that someone else might win a race? This is going to be incredible. And although that race wasn't particularly exciting, that moment where we knew he's not coming back out on the track was a really special time. And since then, there's been a lot to be interested in, I think. I know it's been Miami is where it really kicked into gear, that the competitive lineup really changed up. But I've actually really loved this year. It's been just a great surprise to see where everyone's coming from. It's been amazing to see the development race that everybody's been having, and actually not just closing the gap, but don't want to give away too much about the race that we're going to talk about, but they've even passed them in some cases where they're faster than Red Bull. So, yeah, I've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, well, On that point, shall we move into the tech and the race summary then, Aaron?
The Hungary Grand Prix is a standard race weekend, and rather than repeat that, we all know what a standard race weekend is now.
So standard.
But the big hero of the weekend this week was team radios. These essential communication tools have been a staple of the sport since 2006 and play a crucial role in the strategy and drama we see on race day. The first race to have team radios broadcast was the Chinese Grand Prix in 2004, but they became officially part of the season in 2006. Team radios are a vital link between drivers and their engineers on the pit wall. Every team is equipped with these radios, allowing real-time communication throughout the race. Interestingly, the team radios are made public during the Grand Prix telecast and are available for all other teams to listen to during the race. While the public get these transmissions with a slight delay to censor any driver swearing, the teams receive a live broadcast, enabling them to potentially gain insights into their competitors' strategies. Given that every word exchange over the team radio can be overheard by rival teams, coded language is often used to keep strategies under wraps. For instance, you might hear a team telling their driver, "We are on plan C." This is deliberately vague to prevent the other teams from understanding the specific details of that strategy. Only the driver and the team really know what plan C entails, keeping their true intentions hidden. It's also important to note that drivers within the same team cannot hear each other's radio conversations. They rely solely on their communication with their engineers on the pit wall. This means that if a team needs to coordinate between their two drivers, the engineers act as intermediaries, relaying messages back and forth. Beyond just strategy, teams sometimes use team radio to confuse their rivals. For example, a team might call their driver to pit after a certain turn or on a certain lap, having previously established that the driver is to ignore this call. The goal here is to trick a nearby rival into reacting, perhaps prompting them to pit prematurely or alter their race strategy based on false information. Teams also use the radio to draw the FIA steward's attention to behaviour they feel is breaking the rules. You might hear a driver being told to report that another driver is exceeding track limits or engaging in dangerous driving. This can be a strategic move to get the stewards to investigate and potentially penalise a competitor. The introduction of team radios revolutionised how teams and drivers interact during a race. It added a new layer of strategy and communication that has become integral to the sport. From coded messages to strategic deception to influencing the stewards, team radio is a powerful tool in the high-stakes world of Formula One.
That was like trivia knowledge build right there.
That was Chat GPT right there.
Are we fact-checking?
I gave it specific rules about what it was allowed to say and not allowed to say.
Okay.
And
it actually came out really well, though.
Yeah.
Sounded good.
Yeah.
ChatGPT now has all the specific rules about writing a Let's Talk script, to the point that if I asked it to write a script, it knows that Shaun's supposed to start, and Shaun's supposed to start with a hoy hoy, and it gives it everything. Like, ChatGPT and I have worked really hard on making sure that we know how to do things quick.
Also, this comes back to the fact that I now can't remember on how we watched Formula One back in like kid days, but I thought radios were then there still. Like 2006 does not feel that long ago.
No, it really doesn't, actually.
No.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe they would have had them, but not maybe on the public broadcast in terms of the TV.
Or just not like done as consistently or anything like that. Like maybe that's what.
Yeah, I don't think they were broadcast before 2006. Like, I assume they still had a way of communicating with the driver.
Yeah, cool. Alrighty. The Hungarian Grand Prix can be summarised in a few points. Weather, radios, dummy spits, and Piastri. Pre-practice one started under scorching conditions, with track temperatures soaring above 50 degrees Celsius. The hot weather was troubling some cars and tyres. Aston Martin brought upgrades to the car, but their run in being in no man's land seemed to continue, with Alonso not being happy with the balance of the setup. By the end of the session, Sainz topped the timesheets, followed by Verstappen in P2 and Leclerc in P3. Hopes were high for Ferrari after their strong showing in FP1, but disaster struck for Leclerc, who spun out and damaged his car at turn 4. After a red flag, it was Norris who set the fastest time in FP2, with Verstappen behind and Sainz maintaining his form in P3. The hot weather continued in FP3, which seemed to plague the Mercedes more than most. Hamilton had a spin late in the session as he pushed for more lap time. While the heat surged, there were some standout performances from Ricciardo, who secured P6 in the RB, and Albon, who put his Williams in P7. At the end of the session, it was Norris again leading the pack, followed by Piastri in P2 and Verstappen in P3. As we approached qualifying, the weather took for a turn, with rain coming down onto the track during the F2 race. While the rain stopped just before the session, the track remained damp, resulting in a lot of teams second-guessing their tyre choices to start the qualifying. In a unanimous decision, all cars came out on slicks and completed a few laps around the Hungaroring. But the rain came down halfway through the session, slowing the track down and causing chaos for drivers who weren't able to put a great lap time in. Perez caused a red flag with a spin at turn 8 as the rain intensified, leading to a pause in the session. Once the track went green again, conditions were far from ideal. George Russell's strategy misfire saw him run out of fuel, resulting in his elimination. Tyre management became a focal point in Q2, with drivers carefully considering their allocations after the chaotic Q1. The session was a bit more straightforward though, with Bottas, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Albon and Sargent failing to make the cut. The final qualifying session saw Leclerc struggling to control his Ferrari, while Tsunoda's crash brought out another red flag. The onboard footage of Tsunoda's crash was quite scary, and the car lifting into the air this weekend would not be the first time we see that. While the dust settled, it was Norris who clinched pole position, with his teammate Piastri securing P2, making it McLaren front row lockout. Verstappen rounded out the top 3 in P3. Race day was chaotic and highly dramatic, with Piastri, Norris, Hamilton and Verstappen being the main focal point of the entire race. Piastri was able to keep his cool at the start of the race, securing P1 from his teammate and a challenging Verstappen. From that point on, it was a strategy game, with pit stops undercuts being a powerful move to pass the car's head. Verstappen was not having a great time, constantly complaining to his race engineer that the car was rubbish, understeering, and the strategy was absolutely fucked up. Things got heated on the final 20 laps, with Verstappen challenging Hamilton, locking up and causing a collision. Hamilton came off unscathed, but a fuming Verstappen was sent up in the air and down into P5. Norris went into pit to ensure Hamilton didn't trump him with the undercut and was able to overtake Piastri when he had to pit. It was a constant radio barrage from the McLaren team to Norris, instructing him to give the position back. With 3 laps to go and the entire F1 world thinking that Lando would not give it back, Norris slowed down and let Piastri pass, securing P1 and P2 for the team and Hamilton on podium for a P3. While the drama was definitely on the track this weekend, we did have some news from Haas that Magnussen will be leaving the team at the end of the season. Alrighty, Kieran, let's start by discussing Oscar Piastri's first win. You!
Well, to start with, excellent outcome for all of us. Let's be honest, he was amazing from when he got squeezed by Norris first around the first corner and then just disappeared off into the future. It was so fun to watch and see him, just as Martin Brundle kept saying, eking out more time. He said that like 8 times. Mm-hmm. He's eking out more time away from them, and he just had such a cool head, which really stood out in this race especially, but it was great to see. Obviously, things didn't work out in the linear, awesome win that we would have wanted it to work out. Things were a little bit strange at points.
Bit tarnished, right?
It's tarnished. It was tarnished. Let's call a spade. Not from any lack of skill or like unfairness. Like you can see everything in every direction. But yeah, it was really great to see him finally win, and now people can stop talking about when is he going to get his win and he can just go and race, and I'm excited about that for him. It was a weird first win.
I do wonder how much, as you mentioned, he is always cool and calm and collected when he comes over the radio and that sort of thing. And when he won, I wonder how much of him being quite calm on the radio was disappointment at how it happened and how much was just the way he would normally behave. Because he wasn't like any other driver. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't wooing or anything like that.
Thankfully, he didn't say yabba dabba doo. So that was good.
But yeah, he was just quite, oh yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for that. That was really great. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can see him doing that in a regular scenario because that's the way he always is in the car. He is so cool and calm. So I do wonder how much of it is that and how much of it was how contentious the win was.
There'd have to be some element of it where you are the person involved. On the one hand, yes, finally dream achieved. But on the other hand, not like this. You know, there's got to be that element in your mind. What we need him to do is win another race really quickly. And then we've got more data set we can measure against and see whether he's more excited. Because I would have loved to have seen a bit more excitement out of it. But that's just me. Yeah, he was very subdued in the end, wasn't he? Compared to what you would think for a first win.
Yeah. I do wonder whether we will see another win from McLaren and if it is going to be Oscar or Lando, because over the last, 5 races, they potentially could have won them all and they've left wins on the table. And I've whinged about that on the pod multiple times now. I've said to friends, I'm like, I think that's because McLaren have forgotten how to win. They have won this year once or twice now.
Nice.
They won once in 2001, and that was because both Hamilton and Verstappen crashed. And then the previous win was 2012. So it was over a decade ago that they had winning races, whereas your Mercedes, your Red Bull, and your Ferraris all at least have a few races every year that they win. So it's a bit like half their team probably don't know how to build a winning race strategy yet, and they're still learning how to do that.
I think that did show, what was it, last week, where they weren't able to double stack the cars.
Yeah.
Right? This radio call situation, right? It seems very much they're trying to find their feet in terms of being assertiveness and dominance when it comes to what goes on track. I don't think they were lucky. I don't think it caused too many issues this week, but they need to really sort that part out to then make sure that they can not only keep two drivers happy, right, but to keep on winning some races there too.
Yes. Yeah. And it will be great to see them winning more races. And I couldn't agree with you more. It's like they haven't got the confidence to know whether the decision's going to be the one that's going to win them or lose them the race.
That's it. And so they make weird decisions erring on the side of potentially being safe or just not knowing the right decision to make.
It's like a weird conservatism. And the thing that was really interesting about this, and you touched on it there with not wanting to do the pitting with the double stack, their reason for not wanting to do that was to not put too much pressure on the pit crew. And Andreas Seidel said the same thing after this race. The reason they didn't want to make it harder for Lando by pitting Piastri first was it would put too much pressure on the pit crew to get a stop done under a certain time. And I find that really interesting because it suggests that they don't have a heap of confidence that they can definitely do it on command. And this is a team where last year they were taking fastest pit off Red Bull like 4 or 5 times through the season. Like they were really on it. And that was one of the things they were priding themselves on, is how good they were. And this year there's no discussion about how fast or how well they're doing their pit stops. However, now we can see at least 2 races where that has been stated as one of the overt reasons they've made weird calls. And so it's interesting that there's that lack of confidence in where their strategy is at and how you make a winning strategy, exactly as you said. But then there's other elements of how the team work that they're also trying to be conservative with. I just find that interesting given where they've been the last few years.
Andrea has come out after the race going, oh, yes, I had full confidence that Lando was going to do it. And of course he was going to do it. Like, I don't know why anyone would be concerned. I'm like, because we heard the fucking radio.
Yeah.
Like,
no, nobody says that on a radio in an international broadcast who's super convinced that the person's going to do the right thing.
Some of the things that he had been saying to him, just something like, remember every Sunday morning meeting that we have.
That's normal. That's normal for what you say to someone when you know they're doing the right thing.
Did anyone have a favorite radio message?
I did like the remember every Sunday morning, and also just him coming over and going, we'll tell him to catch up then.
Yeah.
Such a mic drop. That was very good. That was very good. There were a few unusual. I actually really enjoyed the radio check, please. And he's like, yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah.
Oh, you just haven't been responding. Like just yeah, that's the message, guys. Oh, that was very funny.
I kind of, again, kudos to Piastri. He raced very well the entire race. That makes no sense. He raced very well the entire day, and he only just kind of lucked out with the end point, really, with the undercut. Because he had strong pace at the start, was able to kind of get enough distance whilst everyone else was kind of like undercut one another. Do you reckon he had any sort of pace, though, to go up against Lando? Or was he just waiting for the team orders to come on through?
The thing would be, had Lando given him the position back straight away on lap 40, 45 or whatever it was, instead of waiting for lap 68, Lando would have had the opportunity then. As we saw, Lando had pace. Lando potentially could have overtaken Oscar in his own right. He'd already been given the call at lap 40 before the whole pit stop saga happened that the papayas were allowed to race each other.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That, the real thing we'll never find out, is just how well Lando could have gone had he have immediately swapped it back. Like if they'd said to him, okay, as you're coming up the straight here, you're going to see Piastri is coming out of the pits. We need you to swap spots immediately. And then I think Lando based on what we saw, Lando had the legs to get past him. So it would have been the case. It'd be interesting to see what would have happened if it were the other way around and Oscar was the one that had the time to get the heat into the tyres, and would he have been able to get away? The other thing too is we know it was very obvious that Lando was not keeping to the time delta he was told to and not looking after the tyres the way they wanted him to. Famously not looking after the tyres the way they wanted him to.
What was it? Turns 4 and 11. Just a reminder, turns 4 and 11.
It's getting boring. That was another one I'd forgotten. But with Piastri, I would wager he was probably doing what they asked him to do at more of the corners that they had been asking him to do it. So were we seeing his real pace, or were we seeing I'm playing the team game and they told me it's going to swap back so I don't need to worry about it, Oscar? So that would have been the great thing, is had it have gone the other way, or had Lando given the spot back immediately, we could have seen arguably two of the best drivers at the moment actually having a go at each other and in the fastest car, which is what we've not had all year because no one else who's been at the front has had their teammate up the front at the same time in the same way.
It's very true, but McLaren being McLaren was probably going to put team orders on that one happening anyway, because it's a big thing for them. I kind of wonder if they're just getting so much pressure on. They're doing so well that they don't want to go and fuck it up.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, there was going to be some team orders come into play somehow.
Yeah.
What's everyone's thoughts now on Norris and how he behaved during the race?
He wanted to prove his point. He wanted to show that he could win the race. He wanted to show that he was a racer. And I do kind of also understand the way that Andrea Stella came out saying that if he had just caved quickly, that would be just as concerning as seeing him actually try and fight. So he wants a racer who wants to race, but he pushed it a little bit too far. Like if he had done it for 5-10 laps, fine, but for 20, you're pushing it a bit.
And the response to the messages. So it definitely, he wanted them to feel like he wasn't going to do it. Even who knows when he decided he was going to do it or not going to do it and what he was thinking. But assuming he knew he was always going to do it, he really left them hanging for quite some time. And they needed to say, you've proved your point. Like, we all get what you're doing. You're throwing your toys out of the pram. We understand, but this is what's going to be happening here. But again, I also do appreciate he's there to win. He's not there to be playing second fiddle. He thinks that he is the number one driver, and fair enough, the score indicates that so far. He's got the experience. He's been in the team, so I can appreciate that. This is the whole thing. It's a mess that never needed to happen.
Yeah,
and it was of their own creation, where no one doubted that they were the two best on the day. No one doubted what Lando was capable of doing. But then it just got weird because of how long it went for. That was the strange thing to me.
Yeah.
And again, it was them trying to make sure that Lando wasn't undercut by Hamilton, but we saw that Lando had pace. He could potentially, again, had he given the place back to Piastri, he could have challenged Piastri. Had he gotten undercut by Hamilton, he probably would have challenged Hamilton and got second place anyway.
I don't know. Hamilton was pretty fierce that entire race to even keep Max Verstappen at bay. I reckon that would have been a big challenge for Lando.
Speaking of childish.
Which one?
He didn't threaten to get the toys out of the pram. He threw them out of the pram. That was a full dummy spit weekend.
Can you, explain to me their relationship with the engineer? I get that you may want to have, some fisticuffs now and again, but it just feels constant. Like, their relationship to one another is just turmoil and chaos.
I think it's just because Max is really pissed with the performance of the car at the moment. Like, it's not living up to his expectations. They're making strategic calls that he doesn't agree with. They're giving him a car that can't win. So he's getting pissed, and he's not used to not winning.
So he is being an absolute little brat child.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for GP to release a book on how to be a Zen master, because there's just nothing ruffles the guy. Nothing that gets said to him, no amount of sass that comes back. He just gives a snarky little comment, and that's that. He never gets upset or raises his voice or anything like that. It's amazing to hear how he does that.
Here's radio back to Verstappen after Verstappen wanted to go and tell the FIA stewards and tell them that I was robbed. He goes, we are not going to go do this over the radio.
It is childish.
Yes.
I also love, again, going back to the team principal talking after the fact, You then had Christian Horner coming out after going, oh, yes, no, that's just something like an in-joke, a kind of way they communicate with each other. I'm like, sure it was.
That is HR alert. No, again, go back to earlier on this year, Mr. Horner, and your alleged behavior. HR alert. If this is the communication style going on through, can't be good.
Red Bull's HR must be flat chat every day if that's what's going on. If that's what it's like from the top and that's what it's like on the track. It's, yeah.
But big changes to the car too, but only on Verstappen's.
Yes.
So what's everyone's thoughts on that? Were they trying to run a specific aero package for the particular weekend, or are they trying to try different updates and they weren't able to roll them out on both cars?
I think they realized that this track had too many curbs for them and they couldn't run their high downforce packages. And it was going to fuck them over in the same way that they were fucked over in Montreal and Monaco.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, we'll try changing to something that's not going to be as downforce and is going to get us some speed on the straights. And hopefully it works out for them. Didn't. But yeah.
And it was distinctly different his to what Checo's was.
Mm-hmm.
And I did hear something, I'm not 100% certain what they were, how they said that it was working, but there's something about that new upgrade that made the front end a little bit trickier to use. And that's, I believe, one of the reasons why it was on Max's and not on Perez. There was something about the way that it worked that Max was going to be able to get on, but Checo just wasn't in the same zone with. So they quite rightly and cleverly kept him with a setup that was going to work better for him.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it was done separately. It wasn't like when you only have one of the new upgrades, so they're going to give it to one guy and not the other. I think it was a deliberate choice, either all around.
And I think it ended up being a bad thing for Max. So I'm pretty sure it caused a little bit of understeer in the front of the car, which is definitely not something that Max is used to because he likes a really like peaky oversteery car.
Yeah, he made that pretty clear. He wasn't keen on how well it was turning in during the race.
Perez, so...
What is there to say now, guys?
I love the fact that people are like, oh, yes, he got from P16 to P7 or whatever he finished at.
Yeah, I think it was 7. Yeah.
He qualified P16 and finished P7. And it's like, look at how good he did. I'm like, no, he created a problem and then had to fix it.
And did he do lots of good driving, or did he just not make the mistake everyone expects him to make now? And I'm not saying this to hate on Checo Perez. Like this is, if what they're saying now, which is that he's got a case of the yips and he's having some real struggles with his confidence in the car and things like that, is the case. And this is the third season in a row where he has this massive dip through the middle of the year. And now we're at a point where the cars are so close, they desperately need both of those guys to be on song. The fact that we're all just like, yeah, well, he'll probably muck it up even in 16. Like I was convinced he was going to need to stop in and get a new front wing at some point, because when you're back in the muck with everybody, that's where the accidents happen. And he unfortunately either finds himself in them by accident or has caused a few. And so I just expected he was going to make a mistake. And then when he didn't, I was happy for him. But are we really celebrating a P7 in, Max got P5 and he launched himself into space at one point?
Yeah. I think for me, it was just Perez failing in qualifying. You know, the Hungaroring is not great from an overtaking perspective. So I wasn't expecting a lot of crashes into one another. It was going to be the pit stop undercut situation to move places, which they did again. The Red Bull strategy team needs to be awarded a gold star for what they're able to go and do.
Hannah Schmidt, she's amazing.
Brilliant. I think that was actually a fun meme with her, looking absolutely crazed as to what was going on with some of that comms.
That was a very good screen grab that they had of that face. Yeah.
Yeah. Perez is undoing himself in qualifying. If he's not able to go and be next to Verstappen to control the pack or to cause, I don't know, team diversions, whatever it needs to be, jazz hands in my case, right? You can't do much else. And it's starting to show on that scoreboard for the constructors. And
in the head-to-head with him and Logan Sargent, he is really starting to look quite embarrassing. And in the race, couldn't get past him. And so, again, the strategy worked out and things like that. And to be fair, you have to be the one that drives it and make the strategy work. So, again, I'm not having a dig at him or his skill or anything like that, but is he the driver that they need in that seat? I would argue no. And even if he came out and everyone's going, oh, but they'll make the decision in the summer break. If he came out and he won one race, but he's had the atrocious run that he's had. It's like comparing, and I know I shouldn't say this because I am in Australia, but we all know what happened to Danny Rick when he went to McLaren.
Yep.
And nobody's having a good time with that, even though he was the one that won in Monza and was just on it that weekend and really good. Would we say, oh, what a successful run at McLaren he had? No, we wouldn't. We would be saying, yeah, it's probably for the best that he was no longer there because that was not working for whatever reason. And I just feel like that's where we're at now with Perez, where, how long do you keep saying, oh, well, he was good a while ago. What is the point in that?
And he will officially be in breach of his contract at the end of Spa.
So you've read the contract?
No, so his contract says that at summer break.
Aaron, one moment. Looking through the pages. One moment. Oh, yeah, hold on. 4.567.
No, so his contract states that he cannot be more than 100 points behind Max Verstappen at summer break 2024. And he is currently 141 points behind Max Verstappen. So
It's going to take some work.
Either Max DNFs, Sergio wins, and then magically manages to pull 14 points out of his ass. He can't do it.
And I'd also heard, if we're going to put our tinfoil hats on with this, because I haven't read the contract, but I've heard that clause in particular many, many times over the last few weeks too. Apparently, they thought, let's get him to sign this contract where it's a year with a second year of an extension. And it hopefully will give him the confidence because he's been going pretty well relatively. And so far at the beginning of the year, they got him to sign that. He immediately just fell off the face of the earth and Lord knows what happened to him. But if you kind of believe the conspiracy theories, the new contract was the one that had all of the performance clauses in it.
Yeah.
And so it was much more ironclad that you've got until this time, because they were looking at his statistics of the last few years and gone, well, he's just about due to really drop it here and we can't have him continue on, or we want the option to be able to exercise something different. I wouldn't put it past them. Like, let's look at how they've behaved in the past.
We know that they're a ruthless team.
Yeah. If it was Gasly or Albon, they would be out the door. And they were.
Kvyat.
Yeah. Yeah. So
We
you
barely
forget how
remember
many. You forget how many they've kicked out.
Yeah. I reckon they will sub someone in. I don't know who it will then be for the remainder of the year. 50 points now is the difference for constructors between Red Bull and McLaren. That is too close.
I reckon they just need to bring in Latifi and just really...
Somehow Sargent gets kicked out and he gets promoted to Red Bull. Oh,
let's put that cat amongst the pigeons. So they're just like, all right, chaos. We just need chaos from this point onwards.
Roll the dice. Go nuts. Anyone have any thoughts about Verstappen doing sim racing up until god-awful time?
Anyone that knows me quite well would be thinking it'd be rich if Kieran says that guy didn't sleep enough, because it's just being up way too long is kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Not trying to be impressive. It just is what it is. It's not necessarily a good idea. And if I had a Grand Prix tomorrow, I reckon I would at least try to get to bed pretty early. But then again, I haven't won as many as Max Verstappen has, and he has done sim racing in the middle of the night and been fine in the past. That being said, his car at the time was like 40 times faster than anybody else's.
He could drive it on snooze, basically.
Yeah.
And
I don't know what time he had to get up or what was required of him. I did hear something they were talking about Lando, and they said that he had an alarm for his bedtime, which was 11:05 p.m. And then he had a wake-up time of 8:05 a.m.
Oh.
And then he had his breakfast time all organised, and he was really regimented and really, he got himself just a lazy 9 hours on the race weekend, and it showed. I thought he did pretty well. But when you look at Max doing that, I think the main thing it did is annoy the hell out of Crofty. He did not enjoy the fact that Max had a night where he was up in the middle of the night sim racing.
Because Crofty's hoping that it was good in the old days where he's gone out to the piss, right? Still a little bit hungover, flew into the thing, got through, drive.
Yeah, Crofty, would you have had the same problem with James Hunt? Because I'm pretty sure that guy was up late at night on occasion as well.
I do think there is a chance that Daniel will get the drive.
You reckon?
I think, we've now had a few weeks where VCARB have fucked him over.
Yep.
He made no illusions about his disappointment in the strategy. He goes, we started on mediums. We then followed the softs into the pits for the first pit stops, and they gave me the pit call late in the lap, so I didn't really have time to think about what the fuck are we doing. So I just did what I was told. And then all of a sudden I was just stuck in a DRS train. He goes, I was completely fucked over.
And he was.
Tsunoda and Ricciardo were pretty close, though, weren't they? Like they
At the beginning, yeah.
Yeah. So then why aren't they on the same strategy?
Because VCARB are idiots.
I get you may want to mix things up because just in case, but like, because Tsunoda did well with, staying out longer first stint.
Yep.
And was able to, secure, I think, P9 the end of the race.
And I think it seemed like Danny had okay pace on the 6 minutes he seemed to be racing as opposed to all the time. What did he make? 17,000 stops? He just seemed to always be going into the pits. And even when you're like, oh, good, he's making his way back up again, suddenly he's just back in 19th. And you're like, what has happened here? What was wrong with his tyres this time? It was a very weird race strategy, and I can see why he was probably pretty pissed off from that.
I said that when they bought their upgrades in Barca. Did they bring upgrades?
Maybe.
And they didn't really understand what the upgrades were doing, and so they had to roll them back the week after. And they can't really criticize their drivers if their team is giving them shit to work with. Like, terrible strategy, terrible cars. You can't expect your drivers to be performing really well. In actual fact, the RBs are both up there in the middle of the pack despite their teams and despite their cars. So imagine if you did put Daniel in the Red Bull and see what the difference is. I still don't think, like, there's random talks that Yuki might get that seat, but I still don't think they'll put Yuki with Max.
I don't see that happening either. Christian Horner has apparently just never been, not a fan of Yuki, but just I think they think his temperament mustn't be suited to it or something like that.
That's what I heard. It was that they don't think that he would be a really good partner for Max Verstappen. However, this year he is slightly different. Like, you're not seeing the Yuki that we used to. Actually, obviously, we did see the Yuki in the first race. But since then, he's been much different to what we've seen in previous years.
Like Christian Horner could talk. Again, HR here is working overtime across those two teams.
Well, one of the other things, though, is that, was it last race weekend where Yuki said a word that you're really not meant to say and then did come out and say that, I didn't know the English meaning of it, which may or may not be real, but he knew that he was intending to use it derogatorily. And so you look at it and go, yeah, maybe he's just not great for the PR for it. Or the reason I actually think that there is a good chance that it will be Danny and none of the others is because it's a high-pressure situation. He's going to be replacing someone who's not performing. So from Red Bull's perspective, if they're looking to keep the Constructors' Championship, and I think they should be, if they're looking at doing that, at the moment they've got a car that's getting virtually no points every weekend. So why not put anybody in there and see how it goes? But from a mindset standpoint, they know that Danny Rick can deal with being with Max. He's done it before. They know if you're looking for experience of that, if you throw Liam Lawson in, for instance, it's an unknown quantity of how he's going to respond because imagine the intense pressure that's on him from there. And would they then end up with another Gasly or Albon situation where they were thrown into the deep end and they'd never been taught how to swim properly? Whereas if they put Danny in and he continues doing Perez level of performances, oh, well, we were doing that anyway. If he comes in and he's incredible, then fantastic. He's saved the day. Everybody's happy to see Danny Rick going well again. He gets more time on Netflix, and imagine how good for Netflix it'd be. Mm. But then they've got that and they've opened up the other seat to be able to put Liam Lawson in to be able to cook for a bit in the lower level and perhaps prove himself. The other thing that they could do if they put Danny in as of now is if he doesn't do well and they're going to drop him at the end of the year, they could have had Liam Lawson in getting the last half of the year worth of experience in. And so that's why, to me, it would make the most sense because they just do not seem keen to put Yuki in anywhere.
And at a point where Max is pissed off at them, you don't want to have a risk of Liam coming in and challenging Max, whereas you know that Max and Daniel get along really, really well.
Absolutely.
They loved being teammates. So they're going to get along really well, and it perhaps will work in Red Bull's favour as to keep Max happy having Daniel as his teammate.
Did you see that bit of them at Goodwood just recently? There was the 20 years of Red Bull, and so they were driving all the cars and all of that sort of stuff, and Karun Chandok was interviewing them, and here's Daniel and Max standing next to each other, and Karun's like, oh, you guys should race some other racing series. It was like a, let's say, touring car sort of thing, but I don't know what it was exactly. But he said, you guys could do that together. You could be a team. And Max said, yeah, I'd love to be on a team with Daniel, or something along those lines, basically like, yeah, Daniel's a great teammate. And then the camera panned out and Checo was standing right there. And I was just waiting to finish the Curb Your Enthusiasm music to come on. I was this is so weird.
It's the same as every time there was, at the start of the season, every time something happened and Daniel Ricciardo's race was ruined, they just cut to Liam Lawson standing in the garage every single time.
Yes, absolutely. It was so good.
The rest of our top teams, and we've just decided to start talking about RB in the middle of the top teams.
Yeah.
But we do have Mercedes and Ferrari. So Hamilton did really, really well. 200th podium.
He's amazing.
Drive.
Legend.
Yeah. Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah.
No other way to cut it. It's
The interaction between Norris and Hamilton in the driver's room at the end. Did you hear about that?
What is the most awkward thing I saw all weekend?
But again,
what was going on there?
It's Lando just being a little brat.
Yeah,
Like, imagine talking to Lewis Hamilton like that. Like, you had a fast car years ago. It's like, wasn't a challenge.
Yeah.
Was a compliment. Calm down.
And he was kind of like, where were you 7 years ago? Like, what are you talking about?
Shut up, you juvenile child.
It was so weird.
It was weird. But again, Hamilton must be feeling very confident in that car, very happy to be getting podiums. On the flip side, he must be looking to Ferrari and going, what shit show am I going to get myself into now?
I've seen the promo photos of him and Leclerc, their dogs meeting. Is it Roscoe and Leo?
Leo, yeah. You have to know what you're getting into when you're walking into Ferrari. Surely. Nobody's looking at it going, it's just going to be the same as when Schumacher was there. I'm certain of it. Like, it's just been waiting for me to turn up. He's going to have his work cut out for him. Absolutely. And I think he'd been there so long, he'd gone through the highest of highs and what felt to, I'm sure, like the lowest of lows. Surely he'd been at the point where he goes, even if we're coming back, I've got to get a change here because I'm just feeling pretty stagnant with it. And if he comes back and he is in Ferrari and manages to get them to a drivers' championship, you cannot hear anybody that says that he's not the best ever. And this is someone, I'm not particularly a Lewis Hamilton fan. I'm going to be really honest. Like, undeniably incredible driver, but I'm not like into him as a fan. If he's able to do that, you just can't argue it anymore. He's incredible if he'd be able to get that to happen. And I would be there to watch every second of it and super excited about it. But he's going to have his work cut out for him.
It'll be the miracle that will be across Italy in like several different like places to worship if that actually occurs, because the Italians will just go absolutely nuts for that to occur.
Ferrari can bring a car that will win. So
yes. That's the hope that I still have in this heart, that they will actually come back. Like, for them to go so far back to now the Imola spec and trying to figure stuff out now, it just feels like maybe they're just going to be quite behind Mercedes. I feel like it's going to be where they'll end up for the remainder of the year, which is kind of sad, but I don't know. Hamilton seems to be doing well compared to Russell. He had a very shit kind of weekend this weekend, which allowed Ferrari to capitalize with a couple of spots there too.
So what happened there? Were they not expecting him to be driving a car? Then that's why they didn't fuel it? Like, what was their decision process to only fuel him enough for half the amount of needed laps? Did he make a mistake and have to do another lap?
I'm guessing, I'm not sure if he had to do another lap, but I'm guessing they gave him just enough and then he pushed too hard.
Right.
And so he used up the fuel and then ran out.
Right.
I think because there was so much chaos because of the weather and what tyres to then be on, it was very much kind of just doing enough just to get by that one particular time, and then realizing the track was evolving better, that he was not able to go and do 4 laps. He was only able to go and do the out lap and then the final one for quali, which resulted in him not having enough of a good time.
Not enough of a good time.
Not time at all. Like, he looked very grumpy.
And sorry to go backwards, but speaking of someone having enough of a good time, the absolute cinema, as they put it, of Perez has crashed his car and then Danny Rick out of nowhere gets the fastest in Q1. That was insane. Danny's never been up there. So
I didn't expect to see him quite that high. That was interesting.
I think even he was kind of like, whoa, like what's going on? But again, the track was really evolving for particular times. If you're on the right time, win, because it was a very random qualifying at that first part.
Yeah,
the first two
absolutely.
areas were just weird.
Which is why it was so strange seeing Russell fall back to where he was. That was really bizarre.
Yeah, timing of it, man.
Yeah.
Timings. Let's talk about more unhappy people. and also throwing some tantrums across the radio. Alonso.
He's been outspokenly unhappy with Aston Martin for about a month and a half, 2 months now. Like, this race, he was particularly angry over the radio, but he's not been happy for a long time.
What was his main beef this weekend? Because compared to what we've been seeing, it didn't seem like they were up and doing things. Like they were on screen. They must have been occurring. So
Stroll got P10, so that Stroll got points.
Yeah.
And Alonso was just behind him P11. So
yep.
Again, where everything's kind of pecking order-wise, they are behind Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren and Red Bull, which means they're going to be out on the cusp anyway.
Yeah.
I think Alonso, like from what I've heard, at the start of the season, he was really unhappy with the FIA and accused them of being racist.
I'd forgotten about that. Yeah.
That was around China. And now the last kind of things that I've seen is that I think Aston Martin have been promising him upgrades and apparently delivering those upgrades, but he's not seeing performance benefits from them. So he's a little bit pissed that he's like, I'm being told that the car is getting better, but the car is not getting better. What the fuck are you guys doing?
That's right. They said, what tips have you got for balance for this session? And he just said, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know. Like Stroll was able to get some points there. Alonso just looked very unhappy just driving that car.
Yeah.
There's not much else I can kind of add with that. I wonder where his mental mindset will then go now because of the break and whether Aston will be able to do something better in the later half.
They've got all the money. They've got all the money.
All the money.
And the supposed rumors of Newey coming on over, that's not going to change anything for now. But they've got the money, they've stolen personnel. They were so good last year. Was it last year? Yeah.
The beginning of last year, they were very exciting. Yeah.
Right? So they knew or they interpreted the rules enough because we're already now 3 or 4 years into this ground effect rule. No.
3.
3.
2021 was the last of the old one.
We extended it over because of COVID. Yes. So 3 years. So they kind of made it all happen last year, which made sense. Now they're just falling behind because everyone has now mastered it and has now gone further.
Yeah.
And realistically, as a team, they do genuinely have the most money because as long as Stroll is driving for them, Lawrence is going to open his wallet.
Yeah. I love it when you look at how many of their sponsors and things and you're like, yeah, Lawrence owns that. That's cool.
I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he's got he owns Aston Martin.
Yes,
with a group,
yeah,
quote unquote. But Aston Martin, he's got shares in Mercedes. He's got big name brands that are on there that he was responsible for making household names and things like that. So it's all. They've got all of the money and they are attracting the talent apparently. And there are those rumors about Adrian Newey going and having multiple trips to the factory. And one of them, they closed the factory for the day. So it was just him and one other person walking through.
Weird.
And it is weird, right? So
yeah.
They stopped a work day so that Newey could go and have a look and wouldn't be disturbed. I don't know whether that was Newey's doing but anyway.
I also wonder if that is kind of no work was happening in the factory on the day, so he was allowed to be there and he wouldn't see anything that was commercial in confidence while he's still on gardening leave, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, because you're Red Bull are wanting to steal from Aston Martin right about now.
More that there was no one at Aston Martin that he could tell things to at that point in time.
What do you mean?
So he couldn't have a conversation with someone on the floor of their factory and go, oh, have you thought about doing this? And then giving them 6 months to work on it before he actually joins the team.
Yeah.
I'm lucky you'll do that.
You don't know. He's a grumpy old man.
Walks in and just goes, see that front wing you got? Yeah. Should make it better. I reckon better would be really good. Thanks for the input, Adrian.
Great advice.
Well, I heard him referred to as the human wind tunnel.
Oh, no, that doesn't sound right.
I preferred it when it was the man that can see air. I thought that seemed a little bit nicer than the human wind tunnel.
HR.
And then the back of the pack, nothing happened.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay, Haas.
They had a nothing weekend.
They really had a real Haas weekend, didn't they? Just like classic.
Haas weekend.
No, I didn't mean that.
Oh.
Just a vintage Haas weekend. What were you doing?
Oh.
Just mucking around somewhere below 15th. Okay.
But maybe they're allowed to have one of these moments because they have overachieved this entire year.
Oh, Hulkenberg has been killing.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, I just wasn't that interested in him coming back. I'm really happy that he has. He's just brought a lot to the table.
Yeah, and especially now to then go to, in the future, Audi, like that's a long-term commitment, which means he'll be on the track for a number more years, which is kind of cool. Yeah, Magnussen leaving. Are we okay with that?
Again.
Yes.
He's left them already.
Yeah. Do you think he'll go to what will become Audi and then they'll just bring the same team over? That would be a real spin out.
I would kind of wish like that would be marketing gold.
It'd be very funny for about 6 minutes and then you're like, did I want K-Mag to stay on? Like, I'm not against him, but like, yeah, is he bringing a lot to the table for anyone's excitement?
He was basically the human dartboard for the penalties in so many races to help the team secure points. So
he's cleaned up his act quite a lot in the last few races.
You were so grumpy at him.
Oh, because it was bad racecraft.
It was bad racecraft. You're completely right.
I agree, but you know what?
And
brilliant. It was brilliant. Teamwork. That was teamwork.
No, he's
that was
now
sacrificial lamb.
he has 1 point on his super license before he's suspended now.
Can you imagine that was part of his like say goodbye thing? Because you've only got 1 point for us and we can't do more of these tactics, we have to let you go.
Imagine if he just, like at the end of the year in the last race, imagine if he just goes, I'm never coming back. I'm just going to let it rip because there's nothing they can do. Suspend me. I'm not coming back for another race.
I reckon he would.
And he just,
he would.
Takes it sideways through and takes 5 people out on the first corner. Like, who knows what he'd be up to?
He'd do that.
Yeah, he would. That's exactly
He did that in Monaco.
I did hear that AO, team principal of Haas, was also very much saying to him, like, if there is a position in the team, we would have you. Like somewhere else, like would you consider it? Again, I don't know where he's going to go, if he's going to stay in Formula One next year or where we go elsewhere. Yeah, AO wants him somehow around, whether it's like a third driver, you know, something.
People seem to like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
That's nice. That's nice. You can kind of leave whilst you go, yay, I'm liked.
Yeah.
But I don't have a job.
Whatever you do, don't touch the car, but we would like you to hang about. Like, that would be nice.
Looking at your notes here, and like, I don't really care about talking about Williams Sub or Alpine, but I do love the fact that you've just written other items. Some of that drone footage was just shit.
Oh my God.
Some of the drone footage was just shit.
It was, that is the line, but it was terrible. I can't remember
that last hairpin.
Last hairpin before you get onto the straight.
And it would go in at like a 45-degree angle and swing around before they went.
Mama, I was having moments where I thought my head was spinning.
Yeah.
It was stupid.
And they did it more than once. They didn't go, well, we learned a lesson. Do not use that. That was tragic.
Yeah.
They've gone, all right, guys, double it down.
This looks cool. Which no one said.
No.
That's it. I'm like literally watching it. I'm like, is that, what are we watching now? Because it's not the helicopter. What are we watching?
Because it was also how a drone normally works. It kind of traces it, right? So it automatically just does the same thing. And it's just like, this is jarring.
Yeah. So they were choosing that line.
I know.
And like it literally at one point, I think, as it like was coming out of the hairpin, it was literally about 90 degrees. And so you're watching the entire GP on its side. You're like, why?
But why? Yes, exactly.
You know what? Silence. I reckon it's time to discuss our tops and bottoms of the week, because that could be one of them.
Don't want to give away too much.
No. Aaron, shall we start with you?
All right, so my top of the week, watching the amount of cars that actually launched themselves this weekend. So we had Yuki, I think, in one of the free practice sessions that he just hit a curb.
No, it was qualifying.
That was
Q2.
Yeah, it was Q2 when he went off and damaged the car. So he managed to get some air going on the curb.
Yeah, he really, that took off.
It looked fast. Like it was quite scary.
Yeah.
And it was just hitting the curb. It wasn't him with another car or anything like that. It was just hitting a curb and he just went flying.
Yeah.
And that's when they changed that curb then to have the gravel on it.
Oh, did they?
So they put like 3 meters of gravel in to try and stop that from happening again.
I love some gravel.
And then
Gravel's good.
And then we had Max being picked up by Hamilton as he dive bombed and locked up.
When they changed that angle and they were looking from the other way, it was so much higher than it originally looked. He really took off as well.
You must be shitting yourself if you're in the car and it lifts off the ground, because like those cars are only designed to have downforce. Like if they're not anywhere near the ground, they lose everything.
Yeah. I just still can't get over the fact that, because when you see that photo of Max in particular, and the rear end is really high up in the air, and it looks like the front wing is just being sandpapered along. And then he just kept driving and didn't even mention the front wing or that. How are these things not breaking in that incident?
Considering half of them, if you hit the curb wrong, part of the wing flies off anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sometimes some of these cars are so robust, and sometimes they're just not.
Yeah. It was very, very weird, but that was cool.
What was your bottom?
My bottom is going to be, because I'm pissed off that they're fucking over an Australian, RB's strategy call to bring in Daniel too early and pit him on mediums on like lap 8. That was just dumb. It ruined his opportunity to overcut drivers that were on the soft tyres and potentially ruined his chance to get some good points this weekend. In a weekend, again, where he needs to be performing, he needs the team to bring him a strategy and a car that can perform.
Like I said, it's the same as Yuki got it, did well. I'm surprised he wasn't able to go and do the same. Kieran, what's your top and your bottom?
My top, one of the things I enjoyed about the weekend the most was listening to GP's response and his communication with Max. Just Max's utter rage at certain points, and just that bit of snark, especially when he said, "Oh, that was a great introduction," referring to how he was bringing those tyres in being too brutal. And then he must have known when he said that, Max's response being, "Don't give me that shit." Yeah. Like, I'm trying to fix up this mistake you've bit the whole way through. But just the way that he handled all of those situations and really just shut it down, or in that instance, just inflamed it. And I still don't know why he chose violence with that, but he decided to go, instead of saying, "Oh, Max, we need you to be more careful," or something reasonable, he's just gone, snark. That's what he's pressed the button and away he went. And I loved that.
It must be on how they just communicate. Like it might literally be
have to be
how they work.
Because otherwise Max would have to get him fired for that. That would have made me so mad if I was in the middle of being angry and someone's gone, snark. I'd be like, no, not having it.
I guess that's also a little bit of like those engineers, their job is to make sure that the driver stays in their place.
Yeah.
So they're
true.
basically nannies.
Absolutely.
They're glorified nannies.
Yeah, like, so
as I'm always referring to them as children.
Yeah.
And I think
governesses. Because I remember what that is now. Sound of Music.
It's the Bridgerton crossover we didn't know we wanted.
How do you solve a problem like Max Verstappen?
Just GP it. And there's another, I'm going to break the rules a little bit because I want to give an honourable mention as another part of the top. The hardest working person of the weekend was the censor on the radio messages. Whoever was responsible for pressing the button to bleep out, man, they must have gotten a callus because it was every person was getting a beep, especially Max was getting 4 or 5 a go. And I was like, man, that would have taken some work to sift through and get rid of everything so that Sky didn't have to keep apologising every time someone says anything mildly off.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. What was your bottom?
My bottom, it's going to be really obvious, but my bottom was going to be McLaren's strategy team. Just guys have got to give yourself some ups. You've got to get behind yourself and back yourself with the fastest car and 2 of the best drivers on the grid at the moment, and have some confidence to make a bold call. Like when you look at what was happening years ago, and there would be Red Bull had been essentially in the doldrums for ages, but there would be a couple of races a year where they would have a car that really suited, and no one was beating Mercedes for anything. Mm-hmm. They would make a bold call and go, well, we know Max is going to be able to get the car where it needs to be. And similar thing actually at Hungary a few years ago where Max was way out ahead and there was like 17 laps left and an insane amount of time to get. And Mercedes said, this is what we need. We need like 30 pole laps from you, Lewis. And he went, yep. And then he did it. He passed Max. He got the win. Even at the time when I was like, I want to see someone other than Lewis winning, he just couldn't be denied because they were like, well, you've got the tyres now, go for it. This is bold, but give it a run. I just want to see McLaren doing that with their team and saying, all right, boys, absolutely run for it. or we're going to double stack you, make up the difference. And I just think that they would be able to do it. I think it's just that the team, like you said, they haven't got the experience, but they just really haven't got the confidence to back themselves.
Yeah.
I'm hoping maybe it might happen. It may not happen this year, actually. It may happen next year. Because once they finally know the layer of performance of that car, they've got at least a standard to run to. They've now got 2 drivers who know their standard and might be able to level up. But
yeah,
fingers crossed. I agree. Good bottom, good top.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And yours?
My top is Nico Rosberg. So after the race, was interviewing Andre Stella in that post-race interview kind of style. And Nico basically just grabbed his microphone and was like, I've got a question, but I've also got a statement. I'm just going to give you the statement first. And he goes, you're dealing with 2 winning and competitive race drivers. You need to just call it as it is. Like, be really harsh, be to the point, because if you leave them grey room, you get stuff like this. From his experience. And I was like, you know what, Nico, I don't really rate your commentary at all, but you know what? Fire.
Yeah.
That was fire.
It was a very good point.
Great point. And again, that's hopefully maybe some of that confidence will come in to that team, but you have to do what you have to go and do.
But again, and we discussed this just before we started recording, if you were Andrea Stella, would you actually listen to the person who is responsible for the Nico Rosberg curse?
Maybe if I'm taking it on board, he cannot go post anything about McLaren, potentially. He can post it about anybody else. That's the contra deal.
Should have made that deal.
Yeah, that's the deal.
Anytime he posts a selfie before a race, he makes a call and it fucks over that driver.
Wow. Gotta be that bad luck. And my bottom is everyone sounding like a spoilt brat the entire weekend. Like I said, it was Alonso, it was Norris, Verstappen. They're all children playing in the playpen, but they're adults. Like, come on. Like, it was just chaos. And yeah, grow up.
Not fair.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Coined it.
Grow up.
Well, that brings us to the end of the crazy Hungarian Grand Prix. Kieran, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I have had such a good time.
Yay. As we enter our final lap, I want to know, what are you most looking forward to now for the end of the season? What's coming up? What are you thinking?
I don't need to see another new driver win for the season. I don't need for us to get a record. What I would love to see is someone now really get some multiple wins in there. So whoever it is, if they start to get those multiple wins, especially if it's Lando, if we look at the lay of the land, that gap to Max is going to come down pretty hard. Now, I think it's theoretical that you'd be able to still beat him, but I think he's still going to win the championship. But if we can see that really coming down and we see Max under pressure and we see Red Bull under pressure and we see a driver like Lando who really gains in confidence because now he's not 1 or a 2-time winner. By the end of the season, he's 3 races deep. It's going to really change the landscape for how he's going to come into next year as well.
Yeah.
But also, we're going to get to see some proper battling for that. Like we've said, if you've got Lando who's up there, chances are Oscar is going to be very close as well. There's going to be more argy between the two of them. We'd love to see Lando or Oscar fighting against Lewis as well, who's coming out resurgent. Yeah, if we can get some multiple wins from people and just see the confidence build and see them closing in the championship, that would make me very happy.
I do also wonder if we do get to a point where we are seeing Norris has multiple wins, Norris is a little bit more comfortable winning, Norris has confidence that he will continue to get wins.
Yep.
Will we see the same sort of bratty behaviour as we did this weekend where they asked him to give up his second win?
I think maybe he'll cool down. Once he gets a couple underneath his belt, he's at least got the confidence there that it's not just a one-time fluke. But I could be completely wrong, and I do think he'll go into bratty behaviour. So I've just given you a yes and a yes.
He'll be both things at the same time.
Yeah, he will be that drag queen that will be like, yes, it's my stage and nobody else, basically. Yeah.
All right. Well, we have one more race until the summer break. Next week, we are at Spa in Belgium. It is a historic and super fast track. It's actually one of the most fatal tracks behind the Nürburgring.
Yeah, because they weren't even able to do back to radios, back to even doing that because of how far the track went and through the bush. Very Aussie. No, forest. That's the word I wanted.
Out in the bush.
Out in the bush, mate.
He's gone off in the outback.
I feel like an entire year's worth of F1 drama has occurred in just 13 races. I'm exhausted. But you know what? That's it from us today. Don't forget to subscribe to Let's Talk wherever you get your favourite podcasts. Follow us on social media at Let's Talk Show to stay updated with our latest episodes and behind-the-scenes content. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Goodbye, Panam, and we'll catch you next time on Let's Talk.
Let's Talk is hosted, produced, and edited by Shaun, Polidano and Aaron Best. Our show is an entertainment podcast. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are for entertainment purposes only. Let's Talk is recorded in Paran in Naarm, Melbourne, and we would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Bunurong people of the East Kulin Nation, the traditional owners of the land. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging.